Hey guys, what's up? So we're going to talk about finally The Last of Us Part 2. Spoiler endings. I finally beat the game. I know I'm super late to the party, but like a lot of other games, and I kind of fell off when I first started playing it, and I just went back to it a couple weeks ago and finished it. And wow, there's a lot to talk about, so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, but if you haven't played this yet, you may want to come back here. We're going to go live. Let me do that now on Podbean and Apple iTunes. We're podcasting. Welcome, Podbean and Apple iTunes. I am Captain Spanish. We're going to talk about The Last of Us 2. Spoiler. The ending. It just all the crazy moments in it. So let's get into it, guys. I did take some notes. Also, I should mention I've stayed completely blind on everything before it released and after it released. So I don't really know the general consensus of what a lot of critics are saying. I know that's getting high scores. There are some people who have given it low scores, but I haven't looked into what the reasons are for that. So I really want to give my unfiltered, sort of unbiased look at this. All right. So where do we start? My God, this is... Okay, so the game starts off slow. First of all, it is a long game. It's longer than I thought. It took me about 40 hours to clear it. I'm also a completionist, so it's probably about a 30-hour game. A lot longer than I thought. There are a lot of times where you think it's going to end, and it does not. The game starts off very slow, which is sort of how the first Last of Us was. The same thing happened to me with the first Last of Us, where I played a little bit of it. I played like half of it, and then I fell off for a few months, and then when I came back to it, I was like really engaged. Same thing happened here. I don't know what it is, but the first time I play these games, I'm not fully engaged until I come back. Then I was into it. So, all right. The game is about revenge. They've been saying that from the beginning. This is a tale of revenge. So it was pretty obvious that somebody was going to die that's close to Ellie. It was either probably going to be Dina or Joel. I always kind of figured it'd be Joel because she has more of an attachment to her, and sure enough, it is Joel that gets killed pretty early on, in fact. The scene is handled well, so I wasn't super shocked there, but it was a powerful scene. So that sets off, that's where the game really starts, is when Joel gets brutally murdered. He gets murdered by this girl, Abby, and her whole crew. And you're not totally sure why at first. Okay. So you had that, and that's what sets things off. Now, Dina is kind of Ellie's girlfriend. She's also pregnant. Dun, dun, dun. So they set off. Dina is kind of the more sobering voice of the relationship, but Dina's also a little crazy too, like Ellie, but she's more of sort of a quiet crazy. Okay, let's see. I did take some notes because, man, there's so much to talk about here. There's just a lot of different factions in the game, and there's the WLFs, who are kind of this militant group. That they're the Wolves, which is Abby's crew. You have the Scars, the Seraphites. They're kind of like religious, almost like anti-technology kind of people, and they kind of worship this deity type lady figure. It's kind of interesting because the game, one of the most powerful things, is about revenge, but it's also about perspective, the theme of this game. It's about showing that people may seem evil and they may do evil things, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're fully evil. We'll get into all that. Okay, so there's one really powerful scene that happens around the middle of the game. Ellie goes out on this quest to find Abby for revenge for Joel. So and she's also looking for Tommy as well. And which is Joel's I think it's his brother, right? And so she is on the heels. She does find this lady Nora who's close to Abby, and this is maybe the most powerful scene in the game for me when she finds Nora and kills Nora. It is insane. She chases down Nora in the hospital, I think it was, and like she eventually corners Nora, right? And the scene is so well done. The voice acting in this game, The writing, I mean, Naughty Dog is best in class. They've always been, and this just proves it again that they're the best when it comes to cinematic storytelling. I love games. I think games are superior to TV and movies. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I know I'll get to the Nora thing, but the one thing about games that are weak, in my opinion, has always been the writing and the storytelling. I almost never feel emotional connection to video games, no matter how hard they try. This game is an exception. When she kills Nora, like, it's crazy because I've never felt a character's emotions or rage more than I did in that situation, especially when she corners Nora. Nora's basically helpless. She's going to die anyway because the spores have got her. And when she talks about killing Joel, it makes it seem like she's going to be repentant and feel sorry and say like, we did what we had to do. He was a bad guy. We had to kill him. No, I forget her exact comment, but she makes a comment like basically saying that like, man, screw him, and I'm glad to hear him scream, basically. And at that point, I was in Ellie's shoes. I was like, you know what? I know this is wrong to kill a defenseless person, but they make you hit that button, and they show you from the perspective of Nora, and the scene's lit all kind of red, and Ellie's face is like crazy. She's distorted, and she goes nuts. We'll talk about that. And then she basically, because she wants Nora to talk, and it's like, and she's like, you will talk, Nora. You will tell me where Abby is. Nora's like, I am not talking. So you have to, like, hit the square button to, like, beat Nora badly. And the scene cuts away. We see Ellie talking to Dina back at the theater. And Dina's like, what happened? And she's like, I made her talk. So basically, she tortured the hell out of Nora. Probably killed her too, and got her to talk, and it was such a powerful scene. That to me is top 10 moments of 2020 gaming. That was like incredible, and the game wants you to like feel bad for your decisions, and normally I do, and I still do about the Nora thing, but man, like when in that moment, I felt Ellie's rage big time, and that is a testament to the game. So you had that, okay, the Nora scene. For me, most powerful scene in the game, personally. Okay, then you go, then you had some interesting flashbacks. You had, one of them was really good. You had a flashback of Ellie and Joel at a dinosaur museum exhibit. I believe it was for Ellie's birthday. And that was really sweet. They were kind of replicating the sort of giraffe scene from The Last of Us Part 1. It was really cool, and one of the cool things about it, too, is that at the end of it, you go in this little pod. There's, like, a space exhibit, and then Joel, the gift to her is that he has this cassette tape of astronauts launching. I forget what mission it was, but then Ellie has on the headphones. She's got the space helmet on, and she closes her eyes and hears this tape and pretends like she's lifting off, which was really a powerful scene, and it highlights, I think, one of the themes that Ellie, she's just looking for, like, reprieve from this world. She's looking for, like, liberation, to be free from this world and to get as far away from it as possible. And I think that was what was going on, the symbolism there of, like, being in the rocket ship, her eyes closed, she's off out in space, doesn't have to worry about this crazy, sick world that this is the only world she's known, right? She always talks to Joel about, like, oh, man, people did this, but like before the apocalypse, because all she's ever known is the apocalypse, which is probably why she has lost her freaking mind, dude. Growing up in this world as a child is almost certainly going to make you emotionally sick, and it does. She goes nuts, and we will talk about that. I guess we could talk about it now. She clearly has shell shock. Now it's known as PTSD. It used to be called shell shock. Ellie is possibly a psychopath. And I don't mean psychopath in the way that a lot of people talk about psychopathy, which is like generic term for serial killer. Being a psychopath is very rare. It's very specific. Van Gogh was a psychopath. It has nothing really to do with murdering people and being evil. That's more of a sociopath thing. It's more of... you have like visual and auditory hallucinations. And that's what Ellie has. She has these hallucinations. It's not overt necessarily, but she has these like occasionally glimpses. Like, that's why I'm not sure if she is a psychopath, because it's not like a full-on hallucination, but it kind of is. Anyway, she goes absolutely nuts. Her face contorts in like crazy ways, and she also, I think, loses a lot of weight throughout the game. Like, she gets skinnier. So she goes crazy. Okay, we'll get more to that. Now, this whole adventure, quote unquote, to get revenge culminates in a scene in a theater where she's there with Jesse and Dina. Jesse's a friend. And all of a sudden, stuff happens, and he's dead. He's shot. Abby's there. And Abby takes... Tommy. Yeah, Tommy's there too. Shoots Tommy. Doesn't kill him, we don't think. And it all culminates in this scene where, like, Abby's there, and she's, like, in this whole showdown. It's like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then cut. And they cut. And all of a sudden... it cuts to at that point I believe it cuts to I want to say that's the point where they cut to Ellie in like this shack, this house area with Dina and their child. So like it kind of, I guess, the guy flashes forward. I'm pretty sure that's when that happens. And so you're kind of like, what's happening? Like, obviously, Abby didn't kill her. Did she kill Abby? We don't know. It's very strange. And then they start flashing back to Abby. This is when you start playing as Abby. This is where I started to have problems with the game, really. I get what they're trying to do. You're playing as Abby. And welcome, by the way. Welcome to the live podcast. Hello. I get what they're trying to do. They want you to understand Abby's situation, right? And they do. Abby, you really sympathize with Abby, so much so that you really start to see Ellie for the monster that she is. And, like, that maybe she's actually the bad guy. But no, Abby kind of is too. They're both very bad people, basically, is what it comes down to. And playing as Abby, it's kind of interesting because you see things from a different perspective. You see the hospital before you, as Joel, killed all those people in the first Last of Us. Well, now you're playing as Abby, talking to all these people. They seem nice, you know. So it's really kind of interesting in that regard. My only problem with it is it went on, in my opinion, too long, especially after like all this crescendo of Ellie like slowly going crazy. It reminded me of like There Will Be Blood, that movie where he just slowly goes crazier and crazier until it reaches a fever pitch, or Nightcrawler, another movie like that. And then it just cuts away, and then you're playing as Abby for like I feel like dozens of hours, like a dozen hours, a while. And I feel like they could have trimmed that down. Like, you don't need all that time to understand Abby's perspective. You do need a lot of time, though, because for a while, I was like, I know what you're doing, game. You're trying to make me sympathize with Abby and be on her side. And I was, like, obstinate. I was like, no, I am not going to do this. Like, I know what you're doing, game. I'm not doing it. Eventually, they did basically win me over. I was still always Team Ellie and will always be Team Ellie. But I understand Abby's perspective for sure. They just could have done it in a shorter thing. That's just, to me, they should have cut it down a little bit. Because, man, it went on forever. And one thing I wanted to talk about too, real quick, when they cut. Okay, so yeah, they cut back. I'm sorry, I took scattered notes because I just beat this game. Yeah, so they finally cut back to the theater section, and again, you're playing as Abby, and you're like going to the theater as Abby eventually. There's all kinds of stuff that happened before then, and her story is very similar to Ellie's story, or Joel's story, in fact. It's like the parallels are so obvious and on the nose. So they're basically two people two of the same people in many regards. And so you're playing as Abby, you get to the theater, and then there's this whole section where like you're trying to kill freaking Ellie. You're playing as Abby in the theater section. And like it's brutal, man. Like you're trying to kill Ellie. And on one hand, you're like, I understand she's a monster, but on the other hand, it's like I don't want to do this. It was very powerful. I'll give it that. And one thing I will say, one of the strong points about Naughty Dog in this game is that they always keep you guessing. I'm telling you, like, so many times where I'm like, this could go either way. Like when I was playing as Abby trying to kill Ellie, normally in a TV show or a game or a movie, I'd be like, there's no way they're gonna kill off the main protagonist, quote unquote. They're just trying to make me think that the main character is gonna die, but they're not. So I'm kind of out of the drama. No, this time I thought there was a 50-50 chance that they were gonna kill Ellie, and they were gonna have me kill Ellie. And that's a testament to Naughty Dog. Like, they threw a lot of surprises at you, and the fact that you played as Abby so long, like, made you really question what would happen next. I mean, and that was the thing. When I was playing as Abby, I'm like, I'm playing, and at first I thought I'm just going to play for her for a little bit. And then I'm like looking at the skill tree, and more things are unlocking on the skill tree. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then you're collecting these quarters, and I'm like, are there going to be 50 quarters to collect? Like, is this the rest of the game? I mean, I was thinking that, yeah, this is the rest of the game, and at the end, I'm going to have to kill Ellie. So what happens at the culmination of this? This is one of my big problems with the game in general. Well, Abby wins the fight against Ellie. Her friend Lev also like joins in on the fight at the end. Dina joins in on the fight at the end. They both get hit. So basically what happens is Abby's going to kill... She wants to kill Ellie, but then she goes to Dina because I forget why. She wants her to talk or something like that. And Ellie's like, no, don't kill Dina. She's pregnant. So Abby steps away from Dina, which I totally get. But then Abby's like, don't let me see you around anymore, to Ellie. And that really kind of bothered me because I feel like the game was cheating. They were cheating, and this comes up later at the ending we'll talk about, of how I think they were cheating. What time are we at? Wow, we're at 17 minutes long. I think this is going to be long because we're also doing a podcast, actually. I may cut it off on YouTube. They cheated, in my opinion, in that moment because everything, you're playing as Ellie, you're playing as Abby, it all culminates to this crazy fight at the end. And then just as we're finally getting to resolution, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable, whatever resolution it is, because these people are both monsters, and I'm not really rooting for anybody, Abby just walks away. And she gives no good reason for it. Like, if you're going to do that, if you're going to cheat on the emotion and not kill one of the main characters, you got to give better reason for that. Ellie's not pregnant. So I was really kind of bothered by that. I guess on one hand, you can argue that they subvert your expectations because you're thinking somebody's going to die here. And I certainly didn't predict that Abby would just walk away randomly. But at the same time, I don't know, man. Like, you need a better excuse for that. You need something. Or at least have it where, like, it crescendo. You need to build that up. Where, like, you need to see Abby's change of mind and change of heart because she spent all this time trying to kill Ellie, hunting down, finding Ellie, going through hell. Ellie, the same thing, going through hell to get Abby. And then Abby just gives up, and you need to build that up at least. Either have a good excuse, like if Ellie were pregnant, that'd be a great excuse, or put the camera on Abby and stay there and let her go through the emotions in her head of like, I can kill this person, but it's a cycle of violence. They don't do that. She just walks away. So that kind of annoyed me. So what happens at that point? Well, then we just kind of go to different things. We flash forward. I'm trying to remember what happens at this point. Like Ellie. This might be where they show Ellie. This might actually be where they show Ellie in the house with Dina, or maybe they go back to it. And anyway, so they're living a happy life, but then Tommy shows up on the horse and he's like, I found out where Abby is. And Dina's like, no, we're done with that crap. But you can see and Ellie wants to do it, so she goes back out to hunt for Abby again. And then that's basically the game of like, now you're going to hunt down Abby again, and you also play a little bit as Abby. Abby gets captured by this new faction that joins in. They're called the Rattlers. We don't really know much about them. They just seem like weird sociopaths. So that they kind of get introduced abruptly. But long story short, Abby gets kidnapped. She gets tied up, and then you're playing as Ellie, and you come up upon Abby. And when I found Abby, I did not realize it was her. She was like really emaciated, because normally Abby was like swole, right, throughout the game. But when you find her like being like basically crucified in this like in the rain, in the fog, creepy scene, by the way. Like, she looks like different, dude. She lost a lot of weight, and Ellie lost a lot of weight. They both look like hell, basically. So we're culminating to end. Real quick, I do want to talk about, before we talk to the ending, I do want to talk about the there was this weird boss battle kind of near the end of the game. This is another minor complaint of mine. The game has like felt really kind of grounded and real, and every kill kind of mattered. Then I fought this boss fight that almost looked like something out of like Resident Evil, where it was like this giant sort of mutating, like amorphous blob of zombie parts, and it just felt ridiculous, and like it was scary and it was cool, but I feel like it was out of place, and I did not like that. In a Resident Evil game, that would be perfect and amazing, because it was fun and it was cool looking, but it did not feel apropos of The Last of Us. So I just want to talk about that real quick. That boss battle, it just was weird, and I overall, even though I kind of liked it, I think it was out of place, because for as scary as it was, I was kind of like, I was almost laughing. Like, what is this? What am I playing right now? What happened to Last of Us? Okay, I don't want to talk about that. Well, let's get to the ending, I suppose. So, Ellie cuts down Abby from the crucifixion pole or whatever. And she's like, they're both there. They're looking like hell. You know, clear symbolism, like the dark beach, the rain, and all that. And Abby, because Abby's friend Lev is in the boat, and she wants to like protect her. So Abby's like, I gotta go, and Ellie's like, no, we're gonna do this. And Abby's like, I don't want to do it. And I think Ellie at that point was like, okay, well, if you don't want to do this, I'm gonna kill your friend Lev. So basically, it comes down to this final showdown of Ellie and Abby. And this time, unlike the theater, you're playing as Ellie. And it's this whole scene where you're just kind of like slashing. It's a very brutal, very just visceral scene. Like, it was really powerful. And it kind of culminates to like Ellie holding down Abby under the water. And you're having to press X to do that. And you're like, I don't want to do this. This is so like evil. And like, that's one of the high points of the game. It's like, man, they make you do things that you do not want to do, and you feel really uncomfortable. And that is like never a thing in video games. Because normally you're just going through video games and you're a murder machine and you're like, whatever, you know. You're playing Assassin's Creed, you're playing Call of Duty, you're just kind of blowing away dudes. Occasionally you feel kind of bad, but not that bad. But this game, man, it's like, wow. So you're holding her underwater, and I'm thinking like, okay, now we're gonna kill Abby. As much as I hate to do it, we're gonna do it. But guess what? At the very end, Ellie lifts her up, and that's that. And lets Abby go away. Okay. It was a powerful scene. And it subverted my expectations, I guess, sort of, again. But man, it also feels a little bit like a bummer. I feel like they cheated again. Because as much as I did not want to participate in that or even witness it, and as much as I don't want Ellie to be the monster that she kind of is, I feel like you've built up the game so much at this point where it's a revenge tale. Just let me get the revenge on Abby. Let me get that kill, even though I don't want to, even though I sympathize with Abby and I sympathize with Ellie. They're both monsters. I don't want to kill Abby, but you know what? I spent the whole game on this revenge tale. And I feel like not killing either one of them, it felt like they cheated a little bit. It felt like they wanted to have the emotions of you doing something you don't want to, but then pulling back right at the end, not going all the way. I feel like they should have went all the way and made me do the deed to the end. You know what I mean? Like, that's my opinion. That was a real bummer for me. It's still an amazing game, and I know some people have given it 10s, and I don't know if I were to review it. If I would give it a 10, part of me would, simply because no game has really, just the emotions and the cinematic storytelling, like it's so powerful. I just wish they went all the way with it. And I'm really curious to see what other people say. Please let me know in comments what you think. I'm going to start watching discussions online on podcasts and everything, because I wanted to go into this completely blind and form my own opinions and see. I'm really curious. Maybe people really loved the way it ended. And again, I don't hate it. I think it's a good ending. But I feel like they cheated, just like they did in the theater, where they should have killed somebody off. They should have made me do it. Go all the way. That's my opinion. All right, so I guess, what time are we at? I guess that's it. It's going to be a short podcast because we are uploading this on YouTube. Make sure to check me out on Captain Spandex on YouTube and Twitch. A couple other notes here before we cut away here is that, Ellie went nuts. It was really interesting to see the main character go crazy. She kept having these flashbacks. And by the way, the actual ending was she goes back to the shack. Dina's not there. The house is empty. One interesting thing, too, I want to talk about, I almost forgot, is that you pick up the guitar and you do this throughout the game. And they have this really cool guitar mechanic where, I don't know if I have a controller near me, but like the touchpad on the PS4 controller plays the guitar. And you can switch the notes, switch the key. So you can play like a G chord and strum it, and it'll play an actual G chord. It'll put her fingers in the right positions, and you can even pluck individual notes. So it's amazing. You can like do songs on it. People have been doing tons of songs. Best use of touchpad ever. But at the end, you go pick up the guitar, and she can't play. You're playing it, and I noticed, I'm like, am I not hitting these buttons? It's late. Maybe I'm not doing this right. But she can't play anymore too well. She did lose some fingers too, by the way, in that whole battle versus Abby. Freaking bit her fingers off, man. Brutal scene. But yeah, she couldn't really play anymore. And so it was obviously symbolic because the guitar was her like connection to Joel. Joel taught her guitar at the beginning of Last of Us 2. And so that was like kind of like her physical connection to Joel, perhaps her only physical connection, and she lost that. So it's kind of interesting. And then she just sets off into the world. So that actually was powerful because it, like, to me, it symbolized that all this revenge has made her lose connection with what matters to her. The whole point of this revenge was for Joel, for her love for Joel. But now she doesn't even have that connection anymore because she can't play the guitar. She can't there's not that there anymore. So in a way, it's kind of dark because, like, yeah, she lost that connection for which she was fighting so hard for. But it also, I guess, is kind of light because maybe it's saying she let go of the past and she just needs to like live her own life now and stop being so focused on that. So it's that part's a really interesting ending to it. But I think that would have worked if she killed Abby just as much, you know. And that's a little bummer. She should have killed Abby. But anyway, so that was the actual ending. The game is all about revenge, but it's also all about perspective. It is all about sort of breaking out of your little bubble that you live in and breaking this sort of cycle of violence, because it's like you fear the unknown. You fear these things that seem foreign to you, and you get so caught up in your own world, in your own head, that everything else seems foreign or mysterious or even dangerous, so you can't trust that. So that's also what it's about, is perspective, because Abby is seen as this horrible monster, and she kind of is, but then you play as her and you're like, okay, she's just like Ellie, man. She's just growing up in this crazy world. She's pretty young, and she's doing bad things, but it's a terrible world, and it's not justifying what they've done. It's just more saying that we need to fix the world if we want to fix people. And then, but you also need to fix people if you want to fix the world. It's this weird thing. It's hard to explain, but, you know, I don't want to say you're a victim of circumstance, but it is, when you're in that world, it's complicated because you can't justify these horrible actions. You cannot justify it. But at the same time, you can at least empathize and understand and want to fix that world. Because I did feel bad, especially for Ellie, because Ellie, I do think, has actual serious mental issues. She really might be a psychopath. You know, it's not just about revenge with her and anger. There is deep mental issues there, and clearly a big part of it is environment. It may also be biological. She may have her family history of mental illness. And Abby, I also empathize with her, but I didn't see clear mental issue there with her. She seemed to be almost more mentally stable, even though she was nuts as well, you know, crazy as well. I don't know, man. There's a lot to unpack here. Do we have any other notes? No, I think that's it. All right, it's a short podcast. It's a long YouTube video, but I had to talk about this stuff because I just beat it, finally. And I am super curious what other people think about this game. I know it got review bombed because I guess people, you know, whatever. It's a whole thing. They don't like. They're bothered by other people's sexuality, which I don't understand. So I know there was that, which it's just weird, by the way. Like, to be so concerned about who you're attracted to, it's creepy. You should stop it. Like, I honestly don't care what consenting adults are into, and I just don't care. Like, who cares? That's nothing to do with it. Anyway, so it got review bombed. It did get some 10s. Game Informer gave it a 10. I'm just really curious to hear what you guys think in the comments. This is not a bad game. Anybody who gives this a score of less than 7 out of 10, I just think is flat out wrong, and I think they're seeing this in a biased way. Now, that doesn't mean it's a 10 objectively. I personally might give it a 10 simply because it pushes the boundaries of cinematic storytelling, of writing, of just doing things that only games can do, and making you really in the shoes of that person and really feeling their emotions, totally empathizing both good emotions and bad emotions. When Ellie killed Nora, man, that was one of the most powerful moments in gaming for me personally. I felt the rage in me. I felt it bubbling up, and I was like, we're going to kill Nora. I'm pressing this square button, even though I know I shouldn't be doing this. And it makes you understand Ellie's emotions. Incredible. So I could see it as a 10. I could see it as a 9. I could see it as an 8. When you start talking about even 7 or lower, I don't... I'd have to see the justifications, but that seems... I don't understand where that's coming from, because if you look down the list, okay, graphics are amazing, animation's amazing, lighting, sound design is... I'm a big fan of sound design in games. It's something I notice all the time, more than I think a lot of people I focus in my reviews. Sound design is so good in this. The music, the ambience, so good. Okay, what else? There's plenty of game here, so if you're somebody who like really focuses on value, plenty of game here. Oh, there's also too a lot of great accessibility options, like incredible accessibility options, and I absolutely love that. I hope more games do that so we can get more people playing games who may have trouble with accessibility. They also have this crazy thing in New Game Plus where you can enter these like cheat codes basically, and it's kind of amazing. You could put the whole game in 8-bit mode, you could put the whole game in 4-bit mode, including visuals and or audio. You can change all kinds of different filters, have it look like a freaking Telltale Walking Dead game. You can have it black and white. You can have it pixelated. You can have infinite ammo, infinite crafting. So I love that about that. And I'm actually tempted to... I wasn't going to New Game Plus it. I never New Game Plus, but having all these filters and cheats might make the game really fun. So this is that. A lot of accessibility. What else would you talk about in the game? What you would talk about? The story. The story is told super, super well. Now we can disagree on the twists of the story, but I don't think... I had problems with some of the way they cheated with the emotions, but it certainly would not drive a game down to a 7. So we have all that. Gameplay is super tight. It's not buggy at all. I've ran into a couple weird things, but nothing major. So I just don't see where you'd get to a 7 on this if you just look down the list at all the things you would when reviewing a game. But let me know what you think. I'm super curious to see. This video is going on long. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. And man, I can't wait to put my Game of the Year video up, my top 10 games of the year, because this, I think it has to make it. I wasn't gonna put it on here too when I first played it months ago, but coming back, second half is where the game's at. All right, that's a podcast. It's a short podcast, a long video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm on Podbean, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, and Twitch, Patreon, and all that. I appreciate it very much, and definitely let me know what you think. I'm super curious, and bye.